I've been interviewing for jobs and I have not gotten any. I haven't wanted to talk about it because it's not the story I want to tell. I had already planned and gotten excited for this like grand reveal of this wonderful opportunity that was going to change my life, and surprise, I'm getting a new job and being this like lovely inspirational success story. I had planned interview tips videos and mentally was already spending the extra money that I'd be making from my new opportunities. So I've been on a bit of a mental and emotional journey in the past couple of weeks. I would say it really started early January. As you know, I had been feeling burnt out. I had been feeling overworked. I had been feeling like my responsibilities just kept increasing, and it got to a point where I felt like the only way for me is out. Coupled on the fact that having gotten my LCSW in the recent months, 5 months ago, people say all the time, you have more opportunities with your LCSW, like LCSW is where the money is. And so I really wanted to live that story. So I was like, okay, I'm feeling like I want out. I'm feeling like this isn't sustainable anymore. And I'm being drawn into the perks of opportunities that I have been browsing. So I actually applied for several different positions. I would say some of them were just kind of throwing spaghetti at a wall, seeing what stuck, you know? But there specifically were two that I really felt like I could see myself doing and I felt like could be a really great career move. And so one of them I applied early in January, one of them I applied probably mid-January, and I got interview offers for both of them. Now in this time I was so thrilled, I was so excited. I was like, this is the beginning of like my trampoline point that I'll be bouncing off of, like things are in motion. I even told Zach, I was like, what if I get in this situation where I have two really great job offers that I have to pick between? And he, being sweet husband that he is, was like, I think it'll be clear in the moment, like you'll know what you want, don't worry about that. And looking back, I'm like, dang, like I was so optimistic, which I love. Like I love thinking of myself as an optimistic person, thinking of myself as a hopeful person. I had so much confidence in myself and I was mapping out like each future. I even mapped out a video plan. I was going to tell you guys that I quit my job. I was going to tell you guys my new job. I was going to give you the interview tips that I mentioned. I was going to film the last week at my current job. I was going to do like a resetting before a new career, not new career, just new position. And then I was going to do like vlogs in my new position. Like I was planning out my future. All that to say, I did my first interview and the thing happened that happened with my current job a few years ago where I was like, okay, it'll be okay either way as I was heading into the interview. And then I did the interview and I was like, dang, I really like those people. I feel really impressed. I could really see myself being great in this position and it would have been an incredible pay raise, and I got so excited for it. After the interview, I realized I was like, okay, it's gonna hurt if I don't get this. And then my interview for the other position, job one and job two, my interview for job two was a couple weeks after that. It was actually just this past Tuesday. And this past Monday, I got an email from job one that they chose to go with an internal candidate, which is kind of a wild thing because like that doesn't say anything about me. Jobs are much quicker to go with internal candidates who are wanting the transfer. And despite being a rejection, I was really quick trying to couple it with like, that doesn't mean I was bad, but that thought pattern didn't stop me from feeling just like quite disappointed. I felt really disappointed. It wasn't the story that I wanted to tell. And also I had all of this hope for like doors out of my current situation. While I was having all of the hope through the interviews, I was thinking to myself, like, I love my current job. There are things that I wish I could fix, but since I can't fix them, it is just gonna be best for me to go somewhere else for now. And I was like helping myself cope through that. I was like grieving the loss of my current job literally while nothing was happening. So anyways, I get an email on Monday saying that they chose to go with an internal candidate. Had like a lovely exchange with the manager. Truly, I was so impressed by them. And I mean, I do hope that if the right time comes and the right position comes, that maybe that could be a future opportunity. Maybe in an adjacent but not quite the same role. So then anyways, Tuesday comes and I do my second interview. I was so stressed going into this one. They had asked me to prepare a 5-minute role play, which, spoiler, ended up being just fine, but I was just nervous going into it. It felt like a classroom presentation from like high school. So I kept reminding myself, like, I used to have to do things like this that I like didn't necessarily want to do all of the time and just had to like cope and do it. But that didn't stop me from being so nervous, especially coming off of a non-job offer straight the next day into doing a new interview. Was tough, was some whiplash. Also, randomly, traffic was so bad on that interview day. I left in such advance. I was gonna get there 30 to 35 minutes early and ended up getting there 2 minutes late, which is not me. There were so many like accidents and things, so truly a lot of people were running late. I was nowhere even close to the latest. I was probably in the first half of people to arrive because it was this whole group thing that we were doing. But even something as small as that challenged me a bit because it made me realize, like, in my head, I'm not a person who runs late. I'm a person who is there early. And realizing that I was thinking that also kind of helped me put words on the feelings I was having having about not getting the job that I had first interviewed for, in that in my head I was like, I'm a person who gets what I want. And I think that goes with like the optimism and confidence. Like, I think it's a good thing that I think that for the most part. And it kind of made me realize that there haven't really been too many other times that I have wanted a job and not gotten it. So I think this was good to happen. I don't know, it just has made me feel feelings, I could say. Job number 2, the interview went really well. I really enjoyed the people I interviewed with again. I think it was a good interview. Just the setup and like what it is, I won't hear for weeks to months, and nothing would change or start for even longer months after that. And so it's not this like quick door out like I really hyped myself up for in January. So while this hasn't been the story that I wanted to tell, the video that I wanted to film, the title that I wanted to title it, I wanted to title this like, I am pursuing a wonderful new opportunity. I instead am coming to you at a time where I would love to have some sort of great opportunity, but right now I am managing disappointment. I'm working through the fact that I had gotten so excited and planned out so many futures for myself. Like, I was spending money I didn't have. Not like in my head. I was mentally preparing for all of the things that would be easier whenever I had the raise that would come up with the one that I was really excited about. And now I don't have that. So I'm managing all those things. I'm working through all of those things, and I hope it's not relatable, because I hope that you get all of the things that would be great opportunities for you. But also, it's just true that sometimes it's not the right time, or I'm not the right person, and that's not a knock on my value or me as a person. I truly hope whatever people are chosen for what I wanted, that it's like their perfect opportunity and that it is exactly what they needed. And I just have to believe that if something is meant for me, it'll be mine, you know? So all that to say, what do I do now? I am recommitting, I'm rededicating myself to watering the garden that I'm in. I always think about, and I have since I was like a preteen, I think it's in As Long As You Love Me, whenever they say the grass isn't green on the other side, it's green where you water it. And that's what I need to focus on. Through the month of January, my cope was making the grass be green on the other side. I was planning my other side. I was planning where my green grass was. And I think it could be easy in this time now, sitting where I am while managing disappointment, to feel bitter or feel stuck or let myself slide. Be like, well, dang, my grass is brown over here. It was going to be green, but now I can't get to the green. And instead, I'm going to choose to focus on the imagery of watering the garden that I'm in. If this is the garden that I am in, why would I let it be anything less than flourishing and blooming and beautiful? I don't know if this was just a cope or if it was some sort of intuition, but honestly, this past weekend, so I got the email on Monday. Honestly, this past weekend, I was already having a mindset shift where I was thinking, I think I need to pour myself into my current life and my current situation. There are always things that are out of my control. There are also always things that are in my control. And I think through January, I was letting things go because I was telling myself they were going to be temporary. I wasn't going to be in this position that long. And now with watering the garden that I'm in, if something is not sustainable, I need to change it. And only I can be accountable for that. If there are things that aren't working for me and I do nothing to change them, then that's me accepting them. I do feel like it's a bummer because I feel like I hear stories so much of social workers finding their exact spot that pays them well and they're passionate about and they love and is wonderful professionally. And I was like, ooh, I want to make some like great switch that is that for me. And there is a part of me that's like, if that's for other people, why is that not for me? But I think what I need to realize is I do really love my life, and reaching a point of burnout doesn't mean that I can't re-achieve the love that I have for that in my current position. Reaching a point of burnout doesn't mean that I can't re-achieve a sustainable love and passion in the way that I have had for years. And there are perks. There's not a raise, but there are perks to staying at current position, such as like the PTO that I get, the flexibility that I have, the relationships that I have built, the role that I've established for myself, the expertise that I have gained. And in the period of not being sure what was coming next, I was putting on hold a lot of things that I would usually be planning because I was thinking that there's a chance that I would be starting a new job by the time I was planning something. But I mean, the fact that I am recommitting to watering the garden that I'm in, and that I'm recommitting at this time, pending something else coming up that's better, but recommitting at this time to be where I am and make it better, means that I've been able to like plan for trips in the future because I can already request the PTO and get it approved. Means that I applied for camp again for this upcoming summer because I loved that last summer, and that's something that at another job I wouldn't necessarily be guaranteed to be able to do. Zach and I planned a really exciting trip that's coming up very soon, semi-spontaneously, but I mean, the fact that we can do that we can book international tickets with about a month's notice, and I have paid time off for that and the funds to be able to do so. Like, my garden is good. Mentally, I'm just recommitting to it. Memory card filled up, but I'm back. Being honest without being vulnerable in ways that are insane for the internet, January was a really tough month. Any extra energy I had, I feel like I was pouring into a job search and preparing for interviews, and I didn't feel like I had that much extra energy. That's not sustainable. That also also could be a winter thing. Like that could be less related to my job and more related to like seasonal affective or being affected by seasons, I could say. I don't need to dive like too deep into it and I'm okay. But that was a tough month. That was a slump. That was a huge slump that I do think it is helpful for me now of having the mindset shift of recommitting to watering the garden that I'm in. But practical ways that I've been trying to do this or to keep myself accountable in maintaining this mindset shift, engaging in the non-negotiable routines that make my life feel like mine. Things like waking up, doing my morning routine, going to the gym with Zach, having my little breakfasts and my little coffees that I love, having cozy evenings and my nighttime wind down routine. Those things have had to be non-negotiables because if I lose the structure of my days, I lose a little version of myself, you know? So those have been things that I've been making sure to keep up with while feeling all of these emotional roller coaster things because that stays steady. I have also been finding things to look forward to, and if it seems like there's a lack of things to look forward to, then I've been creating things to look forward to. It was tough whenever I didn't know my future and I was thinking, oh, it's hard to plan in advance because I don't know if I'll have the job or not. But even in that time, I was planning for things that I did know would happen. A lot of things have been like trips, not all vacations, some like to family and stuff like that, but just things that I know that are coming up that I hold on to. Or even the fact that I was like grieving some parts of the job that I'm literally in because I love it a lot, holding on to those things and looking forward to those things and focusing on those things, I feel like goes in the same wheelhouse as that. And then managing the disappointment of not having the new opportunities that I was hoping to have by making the plans that I was mentioning. Camp, our big trip coming up, those things I couldn't plan until my disappointment hit. But now that I know that I'll be steady and I'll be here, I get to do those things. So that is a positive. And then I talked about this a little already, but I have to put in effort for sustainable change that makes my garden flourish. I think it's easy whenever you're pursuing doors out or whenever you're feeling burnt out. And like these are valid, but it's really easy to be like, well, I'll just make it work. 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 And then all of a sudden you're months down the road and even making it work and having had sustainable change instead of that could have been great for all of those times. And so that's where my recommitting to myself and recommitting to my situation means if I find myself thinking, oh, I'll just make it work, that might be a short-term band-aid, but that cannot be what I just continue to do over and over again. I want this to be encouragement to you if you need to water the garden that you're in. That doesn't mean that you're not pursuing or taking new opportunities as they come or having dreams of like where to be in the future. That just means if you are currently where you are, you also have to pour into that because that's where you are and that's what you're experiencing and you deserve for that to be good. Now, because maybe it's helpful, hopefully I can use these experiences that I have had to help. I did want to talk a little bit about the actual interviews that I did because even though I can't do like an interview tips video because I didn't get jobs, hopefully I can prepare you if you have anything that's coming up. So the ways that I prepared for these interviews, I want to make sure that I had answers to commonly asked questions so that I wouldn't just be entirely caught off guard to the best of my ability, especially since it's been a long time since I've interviewed. So the brainstorming that I did pre-interview was I made sure to have a blurb about myself, an answer to tell me about yourself. I made sure to practice that so that it was just back in my repertoire, being able to talk about myself and my experience and my skills and what I was looking for. So to do that, I actually like journaled out a tell me about yourself blurb and then kind of refined it and then like shortened it to bullet points so that I could be ready to talk about myself and be comfortable doing so whenever interview time came. I also came up with answers for like a strength that I have and a weakness that I have, since sometimes those things are asked in interviews. Even if it's not as direct as what is a strength of yours, having strengths that you have prepared to talk about, you can kind of work into other questions too. I think it's fair to prepare for why do you want this job or why do you want to work with this population? Why do you want to work in this role? It is very likely that you will be asked something like that, so having a good answer for that would be good. And then I also brainstormed some scenarios, some like case scenarios for some of the more commonly asked like tell me about a time when questions that I think was good because it got me again just practicing using the STAR method and talking about, you know, situations and like what I did in them. Not all of the situations that I came up with like to prepare for were what they asked, obviously, because I didn't know what they were going to ask, but I think it was helpful to get my brain in that mode by just like practicing. And even if it wasn't the exact question, some of the case scenarios that I had come up with or just like thought through, I was able to use for applicable questions, even if it wasn't the exact same question that I was thinking of. And then before the interview, I kept having to remind myself, because I did that preparation, I kept wanting to like go back over it and like review my answers. And I kept having to remind myself that an interview is not a test that you have to study for. It truly is a time for people to put a face and a voice and a personality to a resume. So preparation is good, but you're not doing a presentation, except for the 5-minute role play that my second interview had me do. That was more of a presentation. But in general, whenever you're doing an interview, you're not doing a presentation. You're not having to play a character. You're just helping them determine if you'll be a good fit. And I think that's that's a good thing to think through too. It's not, are you good enough? It's, are you a good fit? You can be an absolutely amazing social worker and not be the best fit for the role that someone's hiring for, and that's okay. Oh, and then the other thing to prepare is to have questions that you want to ask the people who are interviewing you, whether it's clarifying questions about the role. I always enjoy asking like, what are traits that you find important for the person who fulfills this role? Just because it's good to hear like what they say and what the priorities are for the social worker they're looking for. In my first interview, some of it caught me off guard, not too much, but just in the sense that it would be, tell me about a time, and then it was like a specific situation that I kind of had to rack my brain and be like, what is a time for this thing? And of course, after the interview, I thought through so many different better answers than ones that I had given, but I know for certain they were not analyzing my answers as much as I was analyzing my answers. And then for my second interview, the first part was pre-recorded videos, the second part was in person. The pre-recorded videos, if I remember correctly, they did ask about like a strength that you have. How do you work in a fast-paced environment? Oh, this was something both of them asked, was about like, how do you triage tasks, or how do you handle it if a day ends up being different than what you're planning for it to be? Adaptability. I feel like adaptability is a big one that social work interviews asked about. But my second interview was very calm, very chill, very similar in just a sense of like, why would you like this role? Can you tell us a bit about your experience? They had me give examples of like a time that I worked with child protection, a time that I handled a difficult situation. Interview 2 had much more broad questions than interview 1. So sorry that it's not a success story, but I hope that hearing a little bit about the specifics of an interview can maybe help you at some point. Just know what to expect a little bit. If I ever do them again, you'll be hearing from me, but for now, I am watering the garden that I'm in. I'm sticking around, and I'm not doing that with bitterness or dreading it or feeling let down. I'm gonna be doing that with excitement and with intention and with recommitment to myself. And I feel like it's a little bit funny to have gone on this whole journey just to end up technically back where I started. But I also feel like by having gone on this whole journey, I have a new outlook and I have a new perspective, and I'm seeing positives in a different way than I did before. And I wanted to tell you about all of it because I do feel like I've changed and grown a bit through all of this, just not in any way in my life. My life will be staying the same. It'd be so exciting if some big change were happening, but it's not. My garden's gonna get watered, and I appreciate you being here with me for it. Hope you're having a great day. Subscribe before you go, and I'll see you next time.